Hello and welcome to the Best Webinar Series. I'm John Forster, your moderator for today's webinar session. And today we'll dive back into NetSkeme after some time and highlight some recent improvements and provide a quick refresher for cloud-based circuit design. This webinar is scheduled to last approximately 30 minutes, and you'll be able to submit questions or comments at any time during the webinar by posting in the questions section located within your webinar control panel. And questions may be answered as they are posted, or we'll try to answer them in the last 5 minutes of the webinar. Please note that today's session is being recorded and that the audio is muted for all attendees. Links to the recording will be emailed to attendees the following day. But if you're experiencing any technical issues, please use the chat window to alert our support staff. So it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today's webinar session, Megan O'Neill. Megan is one of our product owners who has worked with the cloud products, including not only NetSkeme, but also NetBlock. So we'll turn it over to you, Megan.
Sorry about that. So y'all didn't hear my welcome. Thank you for coming. As John said, we'll be getting into NetSkeme today. This is our regular NetSkeme product. I will be demoing it in the review system because some of the upgrades that we've made will enter production this weekend on May 31st. So we are doing this because we do have this sneak peek of kind of a more advanced NetSkeme product coming that we are excited to start discussing in June and are planning to release in July later on in the summer. So with that, let's get into NetSkeme. So you can go on to netskeme.com, log in, and I'm going to be showing you a blend of some of the new and the old of NetSkeme. So once we load, I'm going to go to the home page. So I'm going to turn this into full screen right here because I am demoing on a smaller screen right now. One of our cool things about our cloud products is they don't really require a lot of computing power to use. So you can run them on something as small as a Chromebook. So you can see this is our, I'm going to call it UMS for short, but our user management system. So everyone will have one of these, and some of the it's where you can start a new document, open an existing document, and modify some things about your profile and your preferences. So profile, you can update passwords. Account, you can see your subscription details. Mine's crazy because I test everything in here, but usually it'll just be for a year. So preferences is really where we've made a lot of improvements and plan to be seeing more improvements in the future. So you can see here drawing units, everyone should be very mindful of those and always set those when you start a drawing. You can also see that it has this little asterisk next to it here. So this asterisk is for things that you can only change, and when you save them, it'll only apply to new drawings. So text size, drawing units, presence of jumpers, yay or nay. But there are some things like your canvas background color and your pick box size that you can change on the fly and see updated as you're progressing through a drawing. So with that, I'm going to open an existing drawing. So let me browse. I'm going to go into NetSkeme, go into the webinar. So you can see here, this is a drawing that I got from Carlo. You can see it was made in Hydra. Some of the improvements that we've made within this NetSkeme now that are going to be in the current release are increased compatibility with Hydra. So we want things from NetSkeme to be able to be open in Hydra, things from Hydra to be open in NetSkeme. Now, every single possible thing you could do in Hydra, like creating a massive hatched multi-sheet document, isn't necessarily going to be possible in NetSkeme, but we are now supporting Hatch. We're supporting various forms of multi-line text, various splines that weren't supported before. So we are making strides in additional DWG support. So looking at this drawing from Hydra, you can tell a lot of it is in Italian, but here we've got a very, very basic circuit. So we see we only have 3 components in this circuit. If I wanted to export this into a 3D file for NetBlock for MD tools, I could do that. So I can select the manifold and I see my list of nets. And I can, as I click on them, I can see them highlighted. So I can see that's net 1. And say as I go through this, I want to relabel the nets. I want to say this is actually pressure. I can do that with any of the nets. It just organizes them via alphabetical order here. And now a new thing that we do is we can insert the net list. So any of the changes I made, like naming that pressure, are going to be reflected here, and we can insert that into the drawing as well as export it into a 3D system. But this is a NetSkeme webinar. I'm not going to go into a 3D system today, so I will cancel out of this. So looking at this drawing from Carlo, I can see a lot of things. I have a very basic, these 3 components, but my parts list over here is pretty wild because I've got my 3 components towards the bottom, but I've got all of these 100 level components that are related to this power unit. Now, let's say I'm making a ton of different circuits that all are based off of this power unit or a very similar power unit. And I don't want to have to reconstruct this power unit every time. I don't want my entire parts list to be this power unit. There's a couple different things I can do. So just for ease of selection, I'm going to move that title block out of the way. I'm gonna move this out of the way. So here, looking at these, if I want to change my parts list so it doesn't have these, I can start selecting a part, editing, and I can exclude it from the parts list. So excluding it from the parts list takes away its item ID, and I can edit and then exclude from parts list. Or I can add more as I'm doing that, I could also add additional descriptions that should show up in the parts list. So I took away those 2 elements. If I rerun and make a new parts list, there we had an A3. Okay, so I make a new parts list and I can see it doesn't have that. Oh, whoop, sorry, this is my new parts list. That's my old one. I just want to get that out of here. So yeah, I can see that I no longer have that reservoir in my parts list like I did in my original parts list. So that's one solution to the problem. I can also bring those item IDs back. I'm just hitting Control Z to undo. And so I've got my item IDs back. If I want to move this around right now, if I grabbed an item and I moved it, it's not connected. So I can select all of this. I don't need the port selected. And I can right click and I can group. So they're all still separate parts now, but I can move it around as a group. If I want to make a second one, I can Control C, select this. Oop, sorry, I'll do it another way. Can copy and paste. So I can keep pasting this unit if I want to do it that way, but I'm going to use this as an opportunity to showcase symbol build mode. So looking at this power unit, it's composed of a lot of different symbols. Some of them may be unique. I'm going to show you how you can make your own unique symbol as well as some of the improvements we've made on symbol build mode. So right now, it's this icon here. I'm briefly going to leave full screen to show you where it is sometimes. So as you can see here, if I am in a very small screen, sometimes I get this, which will be my more, and then I would just go to symbol build mode from there. Now I'm going to go back to full screen. There we go. And I'm going to turn off the grid. So now that I'm in symbol build mode, I can make really anything that I can dream up in here. So we have all of these ISO building blocks that'll help us get started if we're making a truly custom symbol. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to work from our NetSkeme library for the most part. So looking at that power unit, I know I had a pump, So this is the pump I had. So as I insert something from our NetSkeme symbol library, you're going to notice that all of these components are exploded. So if I just want to edit a small part, like I say, I really like this pump, but I don't like this arrow, I can select the arrow and delete the arrow. Now, I want to keep the arrow, so I'm going to bring it back. But also moving this around can be a little tricky if all the components are exploded. So I'm going to group this symbol so I can easily move this as a whole symbol because I do want to keep the integrity of this symbol. So I also need to add a motor. So I'm going to add a motor over here. And now I need to add a coupling set. So let's go to reservoir and power unit components and adding a coupling set. So here we're going to run into a similar thing where this is all exploded. I'm going to group it so I can move it around easier. So with this coupling set, I only have half of it. And if you remember in my drawing, or I have another drawing of it, but it's very messy. It has two sides to it. So it kind of looks like this, but the one that we were using off of Carlo's was split in the middle. So I can select this, and we now have the mirror command in symbol build mode. So I'm just going to mirror it like that. Another way I could mirror it, it doesn't have to be along this axis, but I can select mirror, and I can really mirror it anywhere along there. I don't need to do that, so I'm going to delete that one. So now I have both of these elements. This one is once again exploded, so I'm going to group it, and I'm going to select this group and move it closer over here. And then I'm going to add this coupling set insert. And that doesn't look very centered, so I'm going to turn off snap to grid. And I'm just going to try to center this just a little bit better. All right, I don't have to be a super perfectionist here, but I'm going to group this whole coupling set situation now. And I'm going to put that in place. Let me line it up with everything else. There we go. There we go. Now I need to add an adapter. So back over here with the power unit components, motor pump adapter. And there we go. So I'm going to group this whole set since that's how I want it. So you can see that you can stack groups on top of groups on top of groups. So right now I move this whole thing as a group, but if I want to start taking it apart, it doesn't all ungroup at once. So I can ungroup, and then you see I still have that coupling set group. I still have this pump group. I'm just going to put all that back. All right, now I'm back in my big group. So I've got that part of the power unit taken care of. Now I need to look for some other symbols. So I remember I needed to add a shut-off ball valve. So I'm going to find flow control and shut-off valve, shut off, line mounted there. And I see this one says in and out, but on the drawing that Carlo gave me, it didn't say in and out, so I'm going to delete that. So if your company uses a standard symbol or something that's close to a standard symbol, but not how we have it in our library, this is a great way to just go in, modify that symbol without having to build something new from scratch. All right, so I've got that in there now, and I also need a filter breather valve. So let me find the filters. You know, those are in here. It's always right in front of you when you just can't quite find it. There we go. Yep, right in front of you. So again, we can see here that it's got that in and out, and our drawing from Carlo didn't have the in and out, but that's easy to remove. Oh, taking care of this. And this technically is a dotted line, but the dashes are too large to be seen. So I'm going to change the line type to make those dashes a little more visible. And I also had a shape on top of this that I'm just going to create. So I'm going to turn on ortho mode to make this a straight line. Boop, and there I go. So you'll notice this is a different color. I can use the match properties command to take the source color and match it there. And I'm going to group all of this as one symbol now. Group. There we go. So now, oh, we have one more filter. So I'm going to take this and copy and paste it there. And I'm going to take it down here and ungroup it and delete some components. So I didn't need this part. I don't need this connection dot. I don't need this. I'm also going to delete this connection dot just so it doesn't look funky when I move it over. I'm going to regroup everything. And move it there. So now I've got almost everything assembled except the reservoir. I'm realizing I also need a site level gauge. So I'm going to use that as an opportunity to introduce making a fresh symbol and using scale. So our site level gauge in the drawing Carla gave us looks like a rectangle. Now seeing that rectangle, I'm going to copy and paste it. Control C, Control E, there we go. And I'm just going to put them right on top of each other. And then I'm going to scale one. So scale is going to retain the ratios of the height and the sides within here. So I'm going to make it very similar and then move it to the center. And I'm going to use match properties again to see. So I'll group. So I actually just want a little bit. So I'm going to ungroup something just so I can get the yellow part. Ungroup, match properties, yellow, yellow, yellow. All right, there we are. Regroup that. And now I just have to build the reservoir. So building the reservoir, I'm just going to use a rectangle. There we go. And I'm going to move this back here. And now I have to build the bottom of the reservoir. So still got ortho mode on, so I'm going to make nice straight lines. Boop. And shift, copy. And let's mirror this. All right. We got that. And I'm going to make the bottom part like this. All right, so I have most of my symbol taken care of, but I did notice on Carlo's symbol that there's a few notes. So I'm going to use some text to insert those notes. And now that we have scale, we can make the text whatever size we want. So I'm going to add it here. I'm going to say this is a 10 kilowatt motor. This. So I have that, and I'm going to copy, paste it, because I also wanted to say this is 25 cc's per revolution. And I also wanted this to say it's 500 liters. So while I'm editing the text, I'm going to show you another cool improvement that we made. So now if I select this text, highlight the text, I can bold, italic, underline, strike through, and any combination of the four to have some additional text editing capability within NetSkeme. So I just want all the components of this symbol to be yellow, so I'm going to go back to match properties, select a source, and just tap everything into yellow. All right, so there's my symbol. You can see here that I'm only gonna have one item ID now. That's what the question mark stands for. And any part of this can be customized as I see fit. Now I'm gonna leave symbol build mode. It says, do you wanna save your progress? Yes, of course I do. So I'm gonna save that. And I have mine set to just go to my download folder, but in settings, you can select any sort of local folder to add these symbols to. I can see it's NetSkeme symbol 3. Practiced this a couple times. And now I go to my symbol. And let me get back in my downloads, NetSkeme symbol 3. And there we go. So now that this, you see it's just got the one item ID, and I can edit the symbol. And once again, either exclude from parts list or add some information about it. So a nice thing about this is that now that I did kind of take some time to build this power unit, if there's other members of my organization, I can send that power unit to them because it's a locally stored PNG file, and they can just be adding this to their own personal folder of my symbols, and we can share symbols that way, which is pretty nice to prevent rework here. So you can still see this is kind of a mess. This includes a lot of tables that I don't need, and I personally want a simplified version of this drawing. And since it's the webinar, and I'd like to show you a couple more things, I'm gonna go back to home, and I'm now gonna go to preferences. I'm gonna change my canvas background color to white. It's been very heavily requested to have a white canvas background. Save the change. This is the big part that everyone forgets to do. They say, why doesn't it work? And you say, well, did you save? No, you didn't. So now I'm gonna go to new, and yep, it's gonna close my current file because I'm adding a new one. So you see here that I have my templates and NetSkeme templates. So everyone with a NetSkeme account is going to have access to NetSkeme templates, which are going to be A0 through A4 for metric, and they're going to have their imperial equivalents if you've set your system to imperial. But I have my templates right now. So we have NetSkeme Enterprise, which is a product for if you have multiple users, or if you want to customize your own single user experience. You can have an enterprise of one, that's okay. You can have NetSkeme Enterprise. So through this, I have some additional settings that I can do. I can add my custom symbol library that isn't making one single symbol at a time. If I have a Hydra user, I can take their library and add it into my account. And I can also add these custom sheets. So this sheet isn't particularly customized, it's just an A3, but you'll be able to see once I open it that I have my own custom logo in there. I've pre-inserted some text, whatever you've been able to make. See, I already have my name in there, and I already have webinar demo sheet. But if your drawing has some standard notes that you always have, you can also put those in your template and use that. I'm gonna turn the grid off, and there's my sheet. So now I had Carlo's drawing from Hydra, but say I want to recreate it. I want it to be simple, I want it to be easy. So doing that, I'm just going to start by adding that power unit. It's a lot of symbols, and now it's just one. So there's my power unit. You'll notice everything that was yellow in the black background mode is now black on the white, but the connection lines will be a little different. So now I'm going to add some symbols. So you can see here, my corporate, this is an extremely small library that I have that's only a couple things, but if you put your own Hydra library in there, you'd be able to see that. But I'm gonna work from Fluid Power Tools, and I have the model codes. If you have model codes, it's a much faster way than digging all the way through the tree and assigning data later, but there's a lot of different workflows here. So I know I'm looking for a directional control valve that's a diplomatic DS3. So, loading the model code, DS3. And then I'm going to start seeing these link symbols loading here. I don't want the stackable one. I did want a little bit different connectivity here, but instead of scrolling through, oh, yep, this is actually what I wanted. All right, so I've got this one, and if I click edit, you can see it already comes in with all of this data. I have another directional control valve from Argo High Toast that I want to use. Look for that. And it's not the non-stackable one. And we've got all different combinations of circuitry in here. I'm just gonna throw this one in there because we are running a little tight on time, and I just want a relief valve in here. Get one from Sun. And there we go. So all of these symbols now have model code information. I'm gonna put an envelope around them. And I'm gonna add some ports. So I can customize these ports, make them whatever I want, but because we're in a little bit of a time crunch, just putting some in. So I can also see this, Control C, Control V, and I can go back later and edit these ports to have different names, different sizes. I'll show you how to do that at the bottom. Yeah, very small port, probably not what I'd want for my pressure port. So I can edit and see, oh, maybe I want a flange. I have my whole list of flanges that I've got preloaded in here via my library, and I want it to be P1. I could go through and do that for all the ports, but I don't think it's necessary for what we're doing today. I can show how we do connection lines. Very simple, very basic. I can also modify this if AutoConnect didn't quite put it where I want it to go. And you see this big green dot that shows up to make these connections. Super snappy, super easy. And I have those grip points so I can just move everything around as needed. Yeah, I probably should have made this a little longer, but you live and you learn. Oh. I can add my tank lines. All right. Oh, I'd want to connect these down here. So you can see even within my symbol, if I left those connection points in, they're still going to be retained. All right, and there we go. I think, oh, actually, let me insert the parts list so we can see how pretty it is. So I've got my model codes, but the things that don't have model codes are this component 5, which is my my envelope, so I could put Megan's manifold, and my custom symbol. I can edit and say model family, Megan's power unit, description, webinar, manufacturer best. And then if I rerun the parts list, you can see that updates right there. All right, and I think that's about all the time we have for today. So just a reminder, some of these improvements that we've seen are coming into NetSkeme production on May 31st, and we have a sneak peek look at NetSkeme Plus coming up on June 17th. So with that, I'm gonna turn it back over to John.
Thanks, Megan. So that's all the time we have today to address any kind of questions that came up, although none came up during this webinar. But if something comes to mind later, if you would like to follow up with an email to support@vestusa.com, we'll follow up with that and reply within 24 hours. So I'd like to thank Megan for delivering today's topical product webinar, and we'd be grateful if you could complete a short survey at the conclusion of today's webinar. It'll pop up automatically. Tomorrow you'll receive an email message containing a link to view a replay of today's session. So feel free to share that link with your colleagues if you would. And a link to view other video segments from prior webinars will also be provided in that same email. So as you can see, we also have the VEST webinar series posted on various social media channels, also on our website. And we'll invite you to follow those channels so that you can receive the very latest updates on upcoming webinars as well as product releases. Our next webinar is scheduled to take place on June 5th, where Carlo Malone will focus on the efficient workflows addressing design requirements within HydroCAD. So again, I'd like to thank Megan and thank all of you for attending today's session, and we wish you a